right, let's do this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another edition of the Uber Farmer Cigar Garage Talks. In the garage, it is Sunday, Thanksgiving weekend. What a busy weekend celebration it has been. And this video is going to be a little bit of everything everywhere. Do check out the welding special edition video, which will drop on the channel today. I'm not sure if it's going to drop first or it's going to drop later. But check it out. We interview Vash Man about his college program by his request. He wanted to shoot the video, and I was more than happy to do it. But first, what are we smoking? What are we drinking? From Blackbird, we have Jackadoo. These are the cigars again of the 20th anniversary cigars. I'm enjoying them immensely. This one's for 2008. Our first baby girl, year 4. Swedish Compass was born in 2008. Yeah, and it's been a ride ever since. For the drink, we have Raspberry Fudge Oatmeal Stout from Big Lake Brewing. I think I've had this one, just so full disclosure, for this Thanksgiving weekend, I bought a bunch of specialty beers. Do have specialty beers pretty much every night. I drank quite a few during the D&D session. We always have a D&D session that we do. I'm going to be talking about that here a little bit. So, have a little fun with it. Yeah, I buy a bunch of fun beers. This is the last one of those beers, and we'll be back to the regularly scheduled program, which are basically the same types of beers, but the ones this weekend were Thanksgiving and Dungeons and Dragons themed. Very good. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I've had this one on the channel before. But anyway, little recap and a little going off in different tangents. So first off, we have a Thanksgiving tradition that I thought I'd kind of talk about. I don't think I've really talked about it much on this channel. And I say, what the hell? Let's talk about it. So about 6 years ago, we moved into the house that we were currently in, and a massive ice storm rolled in. It was one of those, once in 50-year type ice storms. Trees down, power lines down, loss of power, couldn't drive, couldn't use the roads shut down. Just one of those good old-fashioned ice storms, the good Thanksgiving storms. So we had just moved here. The house was hooked up for a generator. We did not have a generator, though. Our previous house, we didn't really need a generator. It had very reliable power. If it was out for hours, if that. It was on our actual Christmas shopping list, was to get a Jenny for the house. We did get one that year, but not in time for our big, I think it was like 3-4 day power outage that we had. So anyway, we got to spend Thanksgiving at Hardee's. We got to, order, or they have the Big C's, or, what's the name of their burger? The Monster Burgers. Left a sizable tip for the staff. But if you have kids in disasters, one of the things you have to do is you have to put a positive spin on the disaster. Kids do not need to have the fear and anxiety and panic of their parents during a disaster. It is not all right. It's not okay. It's never acceptable for the parents to allow their children to see how much they're freaking out. Do that in private. You need to show confidence to your children. You need them to understand that although stuff may look bad and probably is bad, you have everything under control and they have nothing to worry about. So we're doing the best that we could. Now, luckily, we did have a lot of alternative heating devices, so the kids weren't cold. The first night we had a glow stick party where we got a bunch of glow sticks and we camped out in one of the rooms where we brought in all the heaters, had this big camping session, kumbaya, you know. I was able to find a friend who had power. I was able to get some of their tablets charged. But quickly, the kids kind of realized that something was up, right? They had fun doing the camp out. Thanksgiving was coming up, though, and they knew we couldn't cook the turkey in our refrigerator. And, you know, the Hardee's was fun. They did enjoy Hardee's, but Dad had to do something. I had to do something to put a positive spin. So that positive spin was to quickly grab one of my D&D quests, have the kids roll up some characters, and we had a massive D&D, Thanksgiving D&D campaign. And we did it specifically after it started getting dark. We had candles, we had flashlights, we had battery-powered nightlight things. So it set this mood and this ambiance. Homeschooling Mama cooked up or was combined some trail mixes and whatever non-cookable food we had in the fridge, you know, cut up cheese, crackers, stuff like that. And to this day, half the kids don't even remember us not having power. They 100% will tell you, no, we just had fun. But they'll tell you that was the best Thanksgiving ever, was to be without power and to play Dungeons and Dragons as a family together. It kind of shocked and rocked my world that it was one of their best memories, because as a parent, again, it was very stressful to keep them warm, to keep them fed. You know, I had to use camp stoves, and luckily, because we're preppers, we had a lot of prepping food. It's not the most delicious food we did. We could to make it taste really delicious. So now, every year at Thanksgiving, the kids have one request that has never changed, and it is to have a D&D campaign during Thanksgiving weekend. And it has been the tradition now for the last 6 years. Dad usually works up some campaigns, some one-shots. Sometimes they're Thanksgiving themed. Sometimes they're not. It's something I actually plan and think about for a better part of a month or two. So this year, no different. With Vashman came home from college, we decided we were going to do an epic D&D Thanksgiving one-shot again. As we had in years past. Well, if I can remember the name of the channel, I'll put his channel, maybe I'll link the video. There's a guy who reads fun D&D prompts from his Reddit and Discord and different Facebook, I'm sure, and emails. People pose different scenarios, different monsters, different rules to bend out. The guy's very good at dramatically reading and making them sound very interesting. I'm not subscribed. I probably will now that this quest went so well. But he had a little short video about a D&D campaign idea where your party has amnesia. And kind of the goal of the quest is, as you roll your dice, you roll for a performance check. You can tell based on how you roll whether you succeeded or not. So the characters go in not knowing, are they magic users? Are they fighters? Are they thieves? The first few battles, they're trading weapons, trying to find out which weapon feels natural to them. And I absolutely fell in love with this idea. I thought this would be fun. My kids are definitely getting into the typecasting, if you will. I only want to play such and such a character. You know, I don't want to play a magic user. I don't want to play a fighter. This was all random. We had them actually roll to see which character they got. Based on the rolls, what they got assigned. Yes, multiples of them got assigned characters. They are not used to playing. And it was a learning curve. And the kids, I was a little nervous. So it was one shot. So actually I had built-in trigger points where they'd all of a sudden gain their memory one by one. So that, again, they don't. Part of the idea of this campaign is actually to take a lot of time figuring out like how many hit points do I have, what AC do I have, what dexterity, strength, so on and so forth. The guy who does the video, if you watch the video that I linked in there, he's kind of laughs it off as kind of a silly idea. My kids had an absolute blast. They thought it was the coolest thing ever to get random characters, not know who they were, have to figure stuff out, have disadvantages until they figure it out. But then once they do figure it out, they become more OP. They become very overpowered, and they become stronger. They thought this was like the coolest thing ever. It was like a form of almost leveling up, right? The more battles they fight, the more they kind of understand what powers they have. And it was really fun because I told them it's a reverse quest. So in this quest, they actually started at the end of a quest. They had just killed the big bad monster, which turned to be a lich. If you know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, you know how much of a pain in the butt those things are. They just know they have to take this box, which has actually built a prop. The prop had this heart jar filled with glycerin, resin dye, alcohol, and water. So it makes this cool swirl effect when you shake it. And then I put a light. And the light, I could change colors with it. Based on the changing colors, activated, gave them a heads up that something's coming. Something's going to happen. So anyway, they basically work their way backwards through the quest. So they fight their way out of the big bad guy's tower, but of course there's less enemies. They've killed most of them. They backtracked through towns where they found information about where this big bad guy's lair was, until finally they get to the quest giver, who's supposed to seal the lich so that it can't regenerate. But of course, it does regenerate, and then they get to fight the big bad monster again. The cool part is they are supposed to be high enough level and able to defeat the big bad monster, which of course they did. I'm not a big fan of TPKs, so I sometimes fudge some rolls and whatnot in their favor. But the kids absolutely had a blast. I mean, it did take one whole day. I think we gamed for 6 or 7 hours. I have to review the tape. It might be closer to 8 hours. And they had an absolute riot. And they requested that I do this again, that I work this in somehow. Not necessarily a true amnesia quest. The idea was that when the lich blew up, it wiped everyone's minds. And, sorry, my cigar is going out here. Must be talking too much. So anyway, they did request that, like, having mysterious characters you're playing where you really don't know much about the backstory. It's maybe a character you haven't played before. So I got some ideas. Maybe for Christmas we'll try a similar rendition. But they had an absolute blast. I know currently in homeschooling communities, Catholic communities, Christian communities in general, the idea of Dungeons and Dragons is very, very turbulent whether or not someone will approve of it. I've known some priests who say that you should 110% not engage in it, not get near it, that it's a horrible thing to do. Recently, I've had some priests, though, say that they actually want to join us in a campaign, that it sounds like fun. They think it'd be the coolest thing ever to play Dungeons and Dragons with my kids, pretend to be whatever, fighters, barbarians, artificers, alchemists, sorcerers, wizards, whatever. The one did say he does not want to play a cleric or a priest, though. Cleric or a paladin, excuse me. That he wants to play something else because that's what role playing's all about, right? That's what this is. being something we're normally not. And I agree with them. Maybe one of these days we'll have some of the priests join us for one of the games. Again, we have just an absolute riot um, playing them. It is such a good time. We have a lot of joking, a lot of laughing. And for me, that's why, to get back on the religious aspect and why a lot of homeschoolers and Christians are against Dungeons and Dragons is yes, you can take it too far. You can start associating with your character. So if you're playing more of an evil type character, and you start associating with it, that's a problem. So yes, if your child cannot disassociate themselves from fiction and start thinking that they are, Maximus, the dark elf, yeah, you could run into some issues, and I can see that, and I can admit that is an issue. Where they start taking on the persona. Yes, it can get kind of squishy with sorcerers who have deities that they have pledged themselves to. That's really tricky for a lot of Christians to kind of play and to say, because you only pledge yourself to God and to Jesus. But again, it's pretend. It's no different if you can't pretend with Dungeons and Dragons and realize that it's fiction, realize it's a story, then you honestly shouldn't be reading stories, watching television, or even reading some books. Because if you can't disassociate this fictional character you're playing, can you actually disassociate when you're watching a movie, playing a video game, or reading a book? As someone who has a lot of children and a wife who can really dive in and bury themselves in a book, and sometimes will tell me that they feel like they're actually there, they're in the moment. Well, that can be dangerous too, right? If we can't disassociate ourselves, reading a vampire novel or a spooky story, or what are some of the pop culture ones, the Dresden Files or the Anita Blake books, or they deal with some of that occult and macabre. Maybe you shouldn't be reading those if you can't disassociate. Now, our kids can, for the most part, and if they do start to get too much into it, too, like, I'm this character, we dial it back right away. Because one, that's not healthy. No, you're not Roland Falcon Master, a thief and bard. If they start pretending they are, okay, let's dial it back. Have a conversation. Look, this is pretend, right? It's all about pretending. The thing that really, if you can't do that, again, there's a lot of stuff you shouldn't be doing, but Dungeons and Dragons is one of those things where, one, it allows for a mental break. It allows you to be creative. And it's very story-based. Telling stories, being part of a story. Using your imagination to manipulate the world around you. And those are all great skills to have. To have creativity and build on that creativity, that's just amazing. And to not let your children develop that, that's unfortunate. And to be fair, there's Dungeons and Dragons, but there are other RPGs, role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games that we play. We were just playing the D6 one, which is kind of a futuristic. You're shooting guns. There's stuff like Mech Warriors where you're driving robots. There's Warhammer. That one's got some religious aspects too, so maybe not the best example. But there are lots of them out there. We have the Firefly, the Serenity role-playing game. I even have the Aliens role-playing game. So to hear people lump, all role-playing into this, you shouldn't do it as a Christian. I can see their concern and I can appreciate it. And I can admit, yes, especially when you have them really start blurring lines. When they start doing live-action role-playing, where, you're running around town actually trying to play out your character. Yeesh. Yeah, okay. That's not good. Let's not do that, folks. But beyond that, dial it back to what it actually is. It is a chance for you to use your imagination and pretend. And then once the session is done, then you can go back to regular life. You can go back to who you were and, the truth of what reality actually is. But I attend that I would rather my kids sit around a table, physically interacting with each other, playing a role-playing game, than I'd ever want them to be just watching television or on their phones or, hell, even gaming on video game systems. I would rather them stretch their minds than to dive into someone else's reality by playing a video game or watching television. I think too many people are stuck where they cannot use their imagination because we have demonized some of these games and pretend that it's just wrong. We have had a lack and a loss of creativity in the world. We definitely do not have creative thinkers in surplus anymore. We definitely have a depravity, a lack. We have a need, they're going extinct, people to just be creative. And I fear with stuff like AI and coming out, the creativity level is going to drop through the floor. You're going to have the most mundane, boring existence that you've ever seen. And that's real unfortunate because it's the creative thinkers that make new technologies, that innovate, that solve the problems that are currently facing our world. It's those people who can bend their minds and do the nerdy stuff like Dungeons and Dragons. They're the ones solving the problems. It's not the ones asking AI to generate them a picture or to write them a story or an essay. So, yeah. I wish people would play more role-playing games with their kids. The tabletop role-playing games. There are video game role-playing games, obviously. Expand their creativity. Expand their imagination. In case you're thinking out there, well, I don't want my kid to be nerdy. Food for thought. There's an individual out there who wrote the introduction and preface for the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. He was personally asked to write this because he is a champion, a lifelong gamer and dungeon master, and he celebrates Dungeons and Dragons as being one of the reasons he was able to stay sane during his very tumultuous career. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Vin Diesel. That's right, the tattooed XXX playing action figure Vin Diesel absolutely loves Dungeons and Dragons. And he credits it with helping him to stay sane during the schedules, to help him to be creative, to making lifelong friends. So, yeah, don't write it off as, well, that's just a nerd thing to do. No, it's just a creative thing to do. It's someone who wants to expand their mind and not be stuck in the world dictated to them by society. So anyway, folks, I'm actually leaving it there. There's another topic, but I think I'll save it for next week because this video is kind of dragging on. Thanksgiving Dungeons and Dragons. Don't wait for Thanksgiving. You do it for Christmas. You do it for birthdays. You can just do it because it's fun. Now that winter's here, we're going to start campaigning more. It's usually what we do. So anyway, folks, I'm going to go enjoy my delicious Jackadoo cigar, my very tasty beer, and start planning out my Christmas campaign and next year's Thanksgiving campaign, because apparently I got to one-up it, so I got my work cut out for me. Anyway, folks, stay safe out there. We'll see you on the next one.